I'm in the village of Sfântu-Gheorghe in Romania. It's where the Danube empties itself into the Black Sea, and it's an excellent base for exploring the Danube Delta, this labyrinth of water channels and reed beds that is an absolute paradise for birds and for fish and for plant life. But it's not a paradise at the moment for the human population because they're struggling to find the right balance between this nature and maintaining their traditions. For example, the fishermen have been banned from catching sturgeon, which is a very good way of making a living, or was for many decades, but of course they have to protect the stocks, so they can't do that, and globalization has sucked away many of the young people. So how can this community maintain a viable way of life without damaging the nature around it? Well, maybe tourism is a way, but it has to be done in the right way, a soft, slow form of tourism, and that's what we're going to explore here in the Danube Delta.
Europe's watery end. A journey through the Danube Delta with Chris Cummins.
We're going in Saharin. It's an island, a very nice island with many birds.
And what might we see?
Pelican, sturge.
Sort of bird. Storks, pelicans, okay.
It's a very nice place.
This is Christian, a cheery, smiling bear of a man. He's piloting me on a small boat down a narrow channel on the Danube Delta near to Sfântu-Gheorghe on the Black Sea coast. A village of mud streets and barking dogs and wooden houses with thatched roofs. It's reachable only by boat. From a wooden pier in the village, Christian is now taking me down one of the hundreds of waterways that crisscross the delta, nearly 3,000 square kilometres of wetlands. It's one of the last places on our crowded continent where nature has been left to rule the roost, says Dragos Anastasiou, who runs an eco-village in the delta.
It's another world. It's something unique because of the nature, because of the silence, because of the way to live of the people. You go back to the roots.
It's not really silent, of course, in this land beyond roads. There's the sound of the chugging of our motorboat, and the odd splash of fish, and the call of the birds. It's a magical place. The banks are lined with tall yellow reeds, half concealing the odd weather-beaten fisherman. But this strange land feels oddly familiar, tapping me into the half-remembered stories I read and loved as a child. The stories of freedom, told by Mark Twain.
If you've read Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, just imagine you just arrived on their island where they were hiding. It's a childhood dream.
That was Ovidio Buffmiller, a conservationist dedicated to celebrating and protecting this, one of the world's most important biodiversity hotspots. The delta is home to 110 species of fish and 43 species of mammals, including wild horses, wolves, and even jackals. But perhaps most significantly, it's home to 300 species of birds, many of them migratory.
You'll see everything from herons to swans to pelicans. We got the biggest bird in Romania, the Dalmatian pelican. We got the great white pelican. We got plenty of teeth, sparrows, everything you want. Actually, we got around 300 species of different birds here in the delta. It's a shame to miss it.
We're headed out now to the Sakhalin Islands, alluvial mudbanks which are home to Europe's largest population of pelicans. Fabian Schneider is a Swiss ornithologist who spends months every year ringing and studying the birds of the delta.
It's an important place for the big bird like pelican or cormorant, but also for the small bird, because the small birds are crossing the Black Sea, 450 kilometers of crossing the Black Sea before arriving here in Sfântu-Gheorghe.
What makes this such a special place, apart from the lack of roads? What makes it the sort of place where Fabian and his team are prepared to spend months on end living in a rickety beachside hut, which leaks when it rains, ringing the birds?
I think for all bird watcher in Europe, Danube Delta is like a dreaming place because you have a well-preserved nature, and it's a very huge area with a lot of diverse habitats. So there is reed, but also bushes.
FM4 Reality Check. Europe's watery end. A journey through the Danube Delta with Chris Cummins.
This is a Saturday reality check special with me, Chris Cummins, from one of the world's most important biodiversity hotspots, the Danube Delta. And this is Bogdan from Bucharest, who's not only made the Delta in Romania his home, but has also studied the possibilities of ecotourism here. We're sitting in the morning sun by a channel of the Danube as the wind sends ripples through the reeds.
I'm in love with Danube Delta, one of the last places in Europe where the nature is still virgin, where everything revolves around the nature and is not dominated by concrete, supermarkets and stuff like that.
But it's not just the nature, of course, but also the people who make this area unique, the people who live in the colourfully painted wooden houses with roofs made from the local reeds. Their needs must also be taken into account, says Teodor Frolu, who's trying to encourage soft tourism ventures that involve locals as a way of keeping a fascinating culture healthy for the future.
What we are trying to sell is that this combination of tradition in local villages. For example, we are working also with the local people for develop gastronomy in a traditional way. We identify the local people which really are in love with their tradition and they are really proud about this, and we make the connection between them.
The 20,000 people who live in the Romanian part of the Delta have had a tough time recently. Globalization has had a push and pull effect. The competitiveness of their fish catches has been hit by cheap imports and rising fuel and living prices, and the young have been attracted away from the villages and to the big cities. As tourism developer Dragos Anastasiou explains.
It's not easy to do anything in Danube Delta because you can reach it just by boat, so it's expensive and it's difficult to bring things into the heart of the Danube Delta because we are in the heart of the Danube Delta.
So life is hard in the villages. Here in Sfântu Gheorghe, for example, I've been speaking to a 60-year-old electrician called Mihail. I don't speak Romanian, so his words are rendered by Bogdan, but I asked Mihail if he was confident about the future.
The village is basically doomed because the rich people will be able to afford to buy the houses which are basically deserted now, and they will change the architecture of the village, they will change the layout of the village.
Tourism is a chance to link the needs of nature, culture and economic development, but it has to be carried out in a sensible way. Brash weekend tourism from the cities has had a damaging impact on the Delta's environment, says conservationist Ovidiu Bovmila.
The main threat, I think, it's us, the human, and the speed that our life has. We want to see everything in just one day or two. We want to experience everything in just 1 hour or two, and it's not like that.
But it doesn't have to be that way. Life can get slower. It would do the Delta a lot of good, and it might do us a lot of good. Teodor Frolu, who is an architect, first fell in love with the area when by chance he took a multi-day canoe trip.
I think it's the best experience you can have in your life if you have this opportunity to dive in the nature. I thought, why not create such a soft infrastructure for doing this? And this is exactly what we are doing here.
FM4 Reality Check.